Welcome to this video and series. This video is a live recording from someone, me, who never practiced English and learned English from reading scientific articles. Close to 100% of our videos are made based on my text or our text, or meaning, origin for existence, think tank, and the audios, voiceovers, are generated by a text-to-speech feature from Clipchamp. Contrary to this live recording, our voiceovers are of extreme quality and accompanied by subtitles in several languages and also chapters. So they are very organized, or standard videos. Further in this video series, I will show the evidence provided by science that the supposed Adam, which is the star in West Africa, in Cameroon, and the supposed most ancient African haplogroup A, this one, they form tribes, are not African at all. So Adam and the most ancient haplogroup in the world, supposedly, and supposedly African, is not African at all. That will be part of this or the next video. What matters for us of origin for existence is that the Amazon amarants made climate, even global climate, and feed it the oceans, and also feed it and made soils. These soils are in Brazil called terra preta, and in most of South America, they will go with the name. These made soils will go by the name terra preta. For scientists, it's like the Amazon dark earths. This terra preta for scientists is sometimes terra preta, but often Amazon dark earth, ADE. So since the Younger Dryas, the agriculture hybrids, haplogroups, we will explain in a minute, destroyed climax forests, that means the forests that were made by the Amazon amarants and their expansions. So since the Younger Dryas, or before, the agricultural hybrids, which includes modern humans, like haplogroups R, but before R there are groups like I, Y-DNA I, from Igloo, destroyed climate forests, climate, and soils. They destroyed all that Amazon amarants and their extensions all over the world made during the whole of the human history. The Holocene and rising of oceans with a whopping 120 meters has so much impact that we claim that religions, etc., and narratives all over the world claim it to be a flood or a diluvium. We claim that in most cases worldwide, the so-called floods and diluviums are in fact the ocean rising with a whopping 120 meters, which only locally could have delivered tsunamis. At any point in history, earthquakes, etc., can cause tsunamis, and these tsunamis could be called floods or diluvium. So anyhow, independent of earthquakes, all the world experienced an ocean rising of 120 meters, so you could call that a flood of a diluvium, because it will disturb everything they made on the coast, like ports, etc. The ice ages that come in cycles of 100,000 or 40,000 years. This is for later. And interglaciations, like also the Holocene is our last interglacial, do not exist. There are no ice ages. We will explain that better. There are very cold periods that are called ice ages, but there is no mechanism at all behind them. The Milankovitch cycles, which sometimes are proposed and defended to cause these ice ages of 100,000. The last ice ages were roughly 100,000 years cycles, and before it were ice ages of 40,000 years. So the Milankovitch cycles do not explain these ice ages cycles, because Milankovitch cycles are not abrupt at all, as the temperature and etc. peaks that we observe clearly are. And Milankovitch cycles are not even significant, at least not to explain the ice ages. This image is related to the ice ages. So you see glacial, 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 and you see also interglacial, 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 interglacial. That is must be the interglacial we are in right now, 0. The former one was over 100,000 years ago here. 100, the peak was more or less 125, 130,000 years ago. The peak in temperature. This line, red, seems to be the mean temperature in degrees Celsius. So this clearly shows the cycles, roughly 100,000 years, with interglacials of also roughly 10,000 years. Carbon dioxide, don't tell much about it. It's associated, but studies claim that the carbon cycle comes after the temperature cycle. That is very difficult to see because time scale is too big to write. Interesting is the dust concentration. The peaks of dust concentration, which is not healthy for whatever human living, are always in the ice ages. And that fits very well with what with what we know in the ice ages, the very low temperatures, sea level is lower, and the land parts are more arid, and more arid, less forests, and so you have more dust concentration. So we just showed the glacials and interglacials, and I hope we pointed out that all interglacials start out with abrupt warming, at least in the period of so many million years, roughly 4 million years, in the Quaternary. And after this abrupt warming, the rising of the oceans that we claim will be called floods or flood and diluvium will follow after the abrupt warming. The rising of the oceans is more gradually because oceans are massive and have to be heated up. All this mass has to be heated up. On the sidelines, in this and next videos, I will talk about things are not what you think, meaning Human history is not what you think. The past is not what you think. Or so-called evolution is not what you think. Yeah? Consensus tells us that evolution is caused by random mutations and etc. and positive selection. We agree about positive selection. But positive selection doesn't justify the population of the world. There is only one thing that matters for us, of origin for existence, and for me personally. That is, we mentioned it above, Amazon amarants made climate, even global climate, and fatty oceans, and also fat soils and made soils. Soil they made are sometimes called terra preta, and in other occasions Amazon dark earth, which is the same as terra preta. It's the name mostly used by scientists. So, if our claim would be true, Amazon amarants made climate and made soils, made forests, then obviously we should study and listen to the Amazon amarants, and especially study the ancient Amazon amarants. Only for these reasons, because they made climate, they made soils, and they made forests. At this point of the video, I forgot to mention that the Amazon amarants make climate, not because they can make climate, because they cannot make climate directly. They make climate by growing the Amazon forest, which is an agroforest. So they control or influence the species composition. They introduce species that are of their interest, and they enrich soils by making terra preta. That is explained or by scientists. So that is for other videos, that they introduce species and that they enrich the soils. They have various ways to enrich the soils and to transform poor soils, eroded soils, to enrich them with organic matter, a very stable form of humus that is unknown to modern humans and to our scientists. At least that was so 10 to 20 years ago. They only started to pay attention and to try to explain the formation of this terra preta or Amazon dark soils after they found out that a certain percentage of the Amazon forest presents these terra preta or Amazon dark earth until today, even without them being active, because they are reduced, their populations are reduced, let's say decimated after the year 1500 or even. So only for these reasons we should study and listen to the Amazon amarants, because they prove that they have gained the capacity to be the ancestor origin of 8 billion modern humans. Very important in our videos will be ocean surface currents, because what we claim is that migrations are associated with currents and not at all with walking, not at all. Well, insignificantly, the population of the peopling of the world, of us 8 billion modern humans, took place by navigating the currents. That will be for next video.